be with me, your man, Louis T. Welcome to my continued coverage of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. Day number 2 featured the offensive line and the running backs. I don't want to forget the specialists, but yeah, we're going to forget the specialists. They led off the day running their 40s. No one cares, okay? There was one guy there, a Turk, that had 25 bench presses for whatever that's worth, but no one cares about that. We were there to tune in to see the offensive line. And honestly, the offensive linemen are the most boring part of the combine. Now, I will say, when they run fast, man, is that fun to watch. We had a couple of guys put on a show in terms of the 40. And you do want to see the movement skills. You listen to the guys that are on the field and you just take their word for it, because honestly, we don't know what the hell's going on with these offensive linemen. We don't know what exactly we're looking at. And so I really, with the offensive line, it's, again, as I've said over and over again, and I'm going to continue to bang this and hammer this into your head. If you want to see who's great, just turn on the tape. And the combine isn't going to tell you exactly who's great, especially along the offensive line. At least with the receivers and the running backs and the DBs and the linebackers, we can see movement skills, and then we can see, did they catch it? Did they drop it? That kind of thing. You can't really see any of that with the offensive linemen. And really, we don't even know what the hell we're looking at a lot of times anyway. So they were interesting, to say the least, where the offensive linemen, it's a deep group. You can tell the athleticism was on display. And then you got to the running backs. I'm not going to lie, a little disappointed by the lack of top-end speed. I think last year's crop was a lot faster. However, the overall skill of this group, I think, is better than what we saw from the group last year. So that being said, let's get into this show. What I want to do first and foremost is thank everyone that's joining me. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, I know it's late. Not as late as yesterday, okay? It's right around 10:15, 10:20 on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, this is right in your wheelhouse, okay? It's only 7 p.m. over there. So I appreciate all you guys joining me for this breakdown of day number 2 of the Combine. I'm going to break all 4 days down here on the Louis T Network, and then we're going to start our Draft Prospects 101 series. And so looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight, as we did yesterday, and moving forward. If you're out there, like the video, subscribe to the Louis T Network if you haven't already done so. Make sure that if you are out there and you want your comment read on the air, if it's pertinent, use the hashtag Louis T Live, and you know how to jump to the front of the line. As always, super chats are the way to guarantee that your comment is read. And if you just want to donate to the brand and the movement, by all means, please do so. That being said, let's jump into day number 2 of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. We start with group number 4, which was the punters and the offensive linemen. Again, no one cares about the place kickers and punters. We just want to focus on the offensive line. And this group was really interesting. I thought that on the day, both groups of offensive linemen were really impressive. To me, the second group of offensive linemen was the standout group. But you had a guy turn heads in this first group. We'll get to him in a little bit. But let's talk about some of the other guys before we get to Mekhi Becton. Trey Adams out of Washington, 6'8", 318-pound tackle. He's a guy on my list of tackles that I believe is going to come off the board relatively quickly. Got some issues with his health. That's the big knock on Trey Adams. If he's healthy, medically checks out, all of that good jazz, you could see him come off the board in one of the first 2 rounds. I believe he's a second-round tackle. But you know, and I've said this about the offensive line, just like with quarterbacks, they get pushed up in the draft. You don't see tackles pushed down. They get pushed up. And as teams start grabbing, and we know there's about 3 solid teams that need a tackle, that need offensive line help in the top 10. And so you could see these guys come off the board very quickly. It could start with the Giants at 4 with Mekhi Becton. I mean, it could start very early in this draft depending on the movement. Giants could trade out of that pick. If they stay there, you could see the Giants decide to take Mekhi Becton, and then that could set off a chain of events where you start seeing guys come off the board, boom, 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 boom. And so it wouldn't shock me to see 3 tackles go in the first 10 picks. Wouldn't shock me. Anyway, Trey Adams ran a 5.6 40, had a 1.89 10-second split, which is the most important number for guys over 300 pounds is the 10-second split. And he's a tackle. I gave him 2 stars on the day. Remember, I go on a 3-star grading scale. He was a 2-star guy for me on the afternoon or evening. Thought he was solid. And he's a big guy, man. 6'8". He's a big man. Another guy that I thought moved well throughout the course of the day, and I expected him to move well, was Hakeem Adeniji out of Kansas. Here's a guy that played tackle at Kansas, but the consensus is he's probably going to be kicked inside to guard. 6'4", 302 pounds, 5'17", 40, 178 10-second split, which is not bad at all. I thought he moved around really well throughout the course of the day and received 2 stars. Then you get to the main attraction of the first group, Mekhi Becton, 6'7", 364-pound behemoth. They had him listed at 364, but they actually said he weighed in at 357. Either way, you could split the difference, call him 360, whatever you want. He's a huge man. He's a mountain of a man. But to be that big and run this fast, a 5.10 40 with a 177 10-second split is utterly ridiculous. However, unfortunately for him, his day would be cut short due to an injury. He felt some tightness in his hammy/quad. He shut it down, and I would have done the same thing. So he received an incomplete grade. But really, he came to the combine to prove that he could move. He did that by running the 40. He really didn't need to do anything else. So the tape will speak for itself with Mekhi Becton, and he took care of business today. A guy that stood out to me in this group, and there were 2 in particular that stood out above the rest in group number 4. One of those guys was Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State, the 6'6", 331-pound tackle, ran a 4.94 40 with a 173 split. The guy was flying, and his movement skills all day long were exceptional. They were ranting and raving about him all day long. And I told you, I don't know a lot of times what the hell's going on with these offensive linemen, but I know when I see an easy mover. And Ezra Cleveland was out on the field moving with style and grace, all right? He looked like a guy that could easily get into one of these zone run blocking schemes and tear it up. And so this guy looks the part of someone that could be in a zone run blocking scheme. He was outstanding. 2.5 stars for Ezra Cleveland on the day. I thought he really helped himself with his performance on Saturday evening. Lloyd Cushenberry III, LSU guard center prospect, 6'3", 312 pounds, ran a 5.28 40, 1.82 10-second split. He was solid throughout the course of the day, and he's a guy that I think is going to come off the board somewhere in the mid-rounds, 3rd, 4th round, somewhere in there. I think is when you'll see a guy like Lloyd Cushenberry III come off the board. But he is a good football player, no mistaking that. Wouldn't shock me if he came off the board in the 2nd. Jack Driscoll out of Auburn, the 6'5", 306-pound tackle, ran a 5.02 40 with a 1.75 10-second split. Thought he was good throughout the day. Thought he moved well, showed well. And if he's anything like the last Auburn offensive lineman that was highly regarded in Braden, what was it? Braden, drafted by the Colts in the 2nd round. And I loved him. He was outstanding in his combine. Then Jack Driscoll has a bright future ahead of him. Can't think of that guy's name, but in any event, Jack Driscoll did well. 2 stars on the afternoon. Thought he helped himself as well. But to me, the star of the first group of offensive linemen, group 4, for those of you keeping score at home, was Nick Harris, the Washington center. 6'1", 302 pounds, ran a 5.10 40 with a 1.76 split, 10-second split. He was outstanding throughout the course of the day. I thought his 40 was fantastic. I thought his movement skills blew everybody else's out of the water in all of the positional drills. He just looks the part of a guy that can step in day one and be a hell of a center for you. This guy was 3 stars for me. I thought Nick Harris might have been the best offensive lineman that I saw all day, to be honest with you. And I saw some really good guys moving throughout the course of the day, but Nick Harris was the guy that I thought stood out the most for me. So with that being said, going to get to any super chats that I may have before I move on to the next group of offensive linemen. And we do have a super chat, so I will read that and maybe grab a couple of questions, comments, and then we'll get to the next set of offensive linemen in group number 5. Got a super chat from Power Nickel 29. Power Nickel 29, thank you for the super chat. Your super chat is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the super chat, Power Nickel 29, who writes, "What's up, Lou? Got a quick question. Your words are, this is lying season, but I did hear it's possible that we may not pass up on Tua at number 2. Your thoughts?" This is from London. I saw that same report. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Okay, don't buy it for a second. This is what you're going to hear. This is what I expected to hear. All right, it would not be draft season if you didn't hear this kind of stuff. They've got to pass the time until we get to April 26th. All right, they got a lot of time between now and the 24th of April is the draft. Let me find out. Let me get that exact date. The 24th. The 23rd? That's not right, is it? No way. Either way. They got to pass the time. And so you're going to hear, this isn't the first nor the last time you're going to hear the Redskins are really, really thinking about drafting XYZ, not named Chase Young. Or the Redskins are really considering trading out of the number 2 pick. You're going to hear everything under the sun. And then when draft day comes and they turn in the card, it's going to have Chase Young's name on it. I'm not buying anything that they're selling right now. Look, Tua is a fantastic young man. He says everything the right way. He does everything the right way. If you're a team in need of a quarterback, it's easy to fall in love with this guy. The tape is clean for the most part. He's a really good prospect. If not for the injury, he could easily be rivaling Joe Burrow for the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But because of the injury, Burrow's going to go first for sure. I don't anticipate the Redskins doing anything crazy on draft night. I expect them to take Chase Young because that's the smart thing to do, and that's what I expect them to do. But again, this is what you're going to hear this time of the year. As you mentioned, and what I always tell you, it's lying season. All right, so I expect all of these stories and more to come. We've got plenty of time between now and the draft. You're going to hear a lot more regarding the number 1 pick with Cincinnati and the number 2 pick with the Washington Redskins, because those are the 2 high-profile picks with the most high-profile players attached to it. So you're going to hear a lot of different rumors regarding those 2 selections in the draft. So, no, I'm not buying what they're selling. It's in terms of the Redskins wanting Tua, but you're going to hear that. You're going to hear the Redskins are really interested in Joe Burrow if the Bengals don't take him. You're going to hear the Redskins are really smitten with Tua Tagovailoa. You're going to hear all of that and more. Like I said, the Redskins are open for business. They're willing to trade the number 2 pick. You're going to hear all of that stuff at some point before the draft gets here. But when it's all said and done, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, you're going to hear the Redskins select Chase Young, number 2 overall in the 2020 NFL Draft. I firmly believe that. And so I'm not buying the hype. Anyhow, got some comments, so I'll just take a couple of these. Reese says, "What up, Lou? It's been a minute. Underwear football seems every year we see more and more athletic showcases." Yeah, I mean, bigger, faster, stronger is the name of the game in the NFL, and it seems like every year they're getting bigger, they're getting stronger, they're getting faster. I agree with that. Robert Gamble Jr. says, "What do you think about Tua to the Redskins stuff?" Kind of just answered that with the super chat. Andrew Kim says, those tackles made a lot of money today. Who's going in the top 10? Only so many spots for them. So Mekhi Becton, I think, is going to kick off the offensive linemen that go first, go in this draft, that have a chance to go in the top 10. I think Tristan Wilfs out of Iowa, with his 40 time and his movement skills throughout the course of the day. And I think I said Nick Harris was the most impressive offensive lineman. He was the most impressive offensive lineman, along with Tristan Wilfs. And don't forget Jedrick Wills Jr. out of Alabama. I thought he was exceptional throughout the day as well. So those three guys, I thought, could share the crown for the best offensive lineman performances of the day. Speaking of which, let's get to group number 5 of the combine. If you're scoring at home, it was the second group of day number 2. And you start off with Keith Ishmael out of San Diego State, a center prospect, 6'3", 309, ran a 5.35 40 with a 1.81 10-second split. Thought he was solid throughout the course of the day. I haven't watched him on tape, so I can't tell you what his game looks like. But Daniel Jeremiah said he's a guy that is just busy, stays on his guy, not a mauler, not one of these guys that's going to create a new line of scrimmage, but he's a guy that's going to get the job done. He called him pesky. One of these guys that just doesn't quit on a play and always is engaged with the man in front of him. So looking forward to watching some tape on him. Austin Jackson was a big name coming into this day out of USC. Tackle prospect, 6'5", 322. We all know the story about him donating Oregon to his sister. They talked about it on the telecast. I had heard about it pre-combine. It's a great story for a guy that seems to be rising up draft boards. Ran a 5.07 40 with a 1.73 split, which is a phenomenal time there. And he was a 2-star, along with Keith Ishmael also being a 2-star performer on the day. Josh Jones is a guy that is starting to garner a little bit of attention and creating a little bit of buzz for himself. Out of Houston, the 6'5" tackle prospect at 319 pounds, ran a 5.28 40 and ran at a 1.81 10-second split. Much like Austin Jackson, I thought he was solid throughout the course of the day. Didn't really stand out, but again, the tape will tell the story. Shane Lemieux out of Oregon was a guy I was looking forward to seeing. Just, in passing, having watched tape on Justin Herbert and, seeing their offensive line work, I ran into Shane Lemieux. Impressed with what he was able to put forth. And so I wanted to see what he would time, because that Oregon offensive line usually is very athletically gifted. And see one of the Long brothers who came from that program, they usually have guys that are lean, that can move. And Shane Lemieux did not disappoint. 6'4", 310 pounds, 5.11 40 with a 1.83 10-second split. He's a guard that I think is going to end up being drafted in the first 3 rounds of this draft, and he had a 2-star day. Danny Pinter is a guard, a tackle that right now looks like he's going to project to guard/center at the next level. And a lot of the drills, they had him snapping the football, which tells you that a lot of the teams wanted to see this guy at center. So it'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing out of Ball State. Ran a 4.91 40, so he was moving a 1.73 10-second split. He got 2.5 stars from me on the day. I thought that he really was motoring out there, and he showed some movement skills. And I can also tell he's a try-hard guy. In every drill that he was going 110 miles per hour, and you could see him, holding his breath, face turning red. He's one of those guys that's going to give it everything he's got on every single rep. And I thought he had a really good showing on the evening. Cesar Ruiz, out of Michigan, 6'3", 307 pound guard, ran a 5.08 40 and a 1.77 10-second split. So Cesar Ruiz showed well. I thought he moved well throughout the course of the day. He got a 2.5-star performance from me. I thought he was one of those guys that kind of separated himself from the conglomerate of other offensive linemen throughout the day. He wasn't the best, but he was that group right under the guys that I thought were 3-star performers on the day. Hence the 2.5-star score that he received. I thought Cesar Ruiz really showed well, and Daniel Jeremiah has him as a top 40 prospect, his 37th overall prospect in this draft, which tells you most likely you're going to hear Cesar Ruiz's name probably come off the board in the second round at some point, if not second, definitely in the third. I'm thinking he's more of a second round prospect myself. Andrew Thomas, which was the name that everyone had been echoing before this process really got underway. And I told everyone that would listen, he's not a top 10 prospect. And people were giving me pushback like, what? Are you crazy? This, that. And I said, Andrew Thomas, I said this a month and a half ago. I said, he's not going to be drafted in the top 10 picks. I firmly believe that. Now, I just told you that there are multiple teams in the top 10 that need offensive line help. Free agency will tell the story, because where some of those guys land in free agency will dictate what some of these teams like the Jets, like the Giants, like the Cardinals do and like the Browns will do in the top 10. All right. I think the Giants are going to go offensive line. I think it's a strong possibility that Cleveland goes offensive line in the top 10. The Jets could go offensive line, but the Jets need some of everything. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, what players fall because of the quarterbacks being pushed up, and what takes place. That will determine where these linemen go. But Andrew Thomas was really solid. I'm not going to sit here and act like he didn't have a strong day. I thought he performed well. 6'5", 315, 5'22", 40, a 1.83, 10-second split. Obviously, he's a tackle. My biggest issue, and Daniel Jeremiah pretty much hit it on the head. My biggest issue with him, he's on the damn ground too much. And I always talk about, I don't want my lineman on the ground unless he's pancaking somebody with a little bit of extra syrup on top. If you're not pancaking or you're not cut blocking somebody, I don't want you on the damn ground. And for me, he's got some issues with balance a little bit because he's on the ground a little bit too much for my liking. That doesn't take away from his athleticism and his ability to get the job done. He had 2.5 stars for me on the afternoon, and he is going to hear his name very early in the 2020 NFL draft. The question is, can he crack the top 10? We will see. I think there are other guys that have vaulted in front of him, and I think you'll hear his name somewhere in the 12 to 20 range. I don't think you'll hear it in the top 10, and I've been adamant about that. I'm doubling down on it after seeing the performances of some of these other guys. I'm doubling down on the fact that Andrew Thomas will not be a top 10 pick in this draft. A guy that has a chance to be a top 10 pick is Dredrick Wills Jr. out of Alabama, the 6'4", 312-pound tackle. Showed well. I mean, he showed out at the combine, if you ask me. And granted, he's a right tackle, but he's got the ability maybe to switch and play left. At this point now in this league, left, right, it really doesn't matter. You need a strong left and right tackle. All right. Teams move their pass rushers around. You can't hide a right tackle anymore. Back in the day, you could hide a right tackle because the other team's best pass rusher was going to go up against your left tackle. That's no longer the case. And so Dredrick Wills Jr. is going to be a hot commodity. I thought he was phenomenal throughout the day with his movement skills, his 40 time and his 10-second split kind of display that. 3 stars for me on the day. I thought he was outstanding, and I think he's shooting up draft boards, and he could be the guy that hears his name right after Mekhi Becton, if not before him. I can't anticipate the Giants taking a tackle and it not being Mekhi Becton if they're the team that goes tackle first in this draft. But Jedrick Wills Jr. is making a hard charge to be the first tackle in the 2020 NFL draft. Another guy looking to stake his claim as someone that should be taken very high in this draft is Tristan Wirfs, the Iowa offensive tackle. A lot of people were, just like yesterday with Chase Claypool, everyone was talking about, yep, Chase Claypool going to make that transition to tight end. And Chase was like, oh, hold on. Not so fast, okay? I never said I wanted to be a tight end. You tried to put that on me. I'm a receiver, and he went out and blazed the combine yesterday. Tristan Wirfs did the exact same thing at the tackle position. Everyone was trying to kick this man inside. Daniel Jeremiah wants to kick him inside. Charles Davis wants to kick him inside. And I'm pretty sure he's been hearing that a lot. People talking about how he make an exceptional guard. Well, everyone's going to try to compare him to Brandon Sheriff. Brandon Sheriff, this all Big Ten tackle, was this great tackle, gets drafted in the top 5, and then ends up being kicked inside the guard. He said, well, I'm not Brandon Sheriff. I'm Tristan Wirfs. I'm much more athletically gifted. I can play on the outside. That's where the real money is. Let me go outside and earn my bread. He showed the ability from an athletic standpoint that he belongs outside. Now, he's going to get that shot after posting the numbers that he did today. He's going to get an opportunity to prove that he's not a tackle, all right, before just being summoned inside to guard. Tristan Wirfs, 6'5", get a load of these numbers. 6'5", 320, ran a 4.86. Let me rewind that. Tristan Wirfs, 6'5", 320, ran a 4.86 with a 1.68 10-second split. Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. He also posted combine records at both the vert and the broad for the offensive tackles / offensive line. 36.5-inch vert combine record and a 10-1 broad combine record for offensive linemen. So he was off the charts athletically. And if you want to ask who made the most money today, it was Tristan Wirfs to me. I think he cemented himself as a top 15 pick in this draft. With all the teams that need offensive linemen, you'd be remiss if you didn't think someone was going to snatch up Tristan Wirfs after the day that he put forth at the combine in day number 2. Darrell Williams out of Mississippi State, 6'2", 304-pound center. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs, if I didn't say this already, a 3-star day for him. He was one of the banner offensive linemen along with Dredrick Wills and Nick Harris for me. But Darrell Williams, 6'2", 304-pound center, 5'2", 840, 1.82 10-second split. He was a 2-star performer on the day to wrap up the offensive lineman. Let's get to any comments that may be out there. Read a couple more. Let's see. Again, if you're out there, want your comment read, use the hashtag LouisTLive. Gregory Lightbody says, Redskins will be in need of a tackle when Trent leaves. Who do you think will be good in the second round? Well, the Redskins don't have a second round pick. So if you're assuming that the Redskins are going to trade Trent for a second round pick, that'll be interesting to see how that situation unfolds. But who will be available in the second round? Again, it's hard to project because of the fact that these tackles get pushed up. And I talk about that all the time, how these tackles usually get pushed up the draft, and a guy that you think is going to be there probably will not be there. But I look at a guy like Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State as a guy that'll be there in the second round. You talk about some other guys on this list that may potentially be there. Austin Jackson, I think, is going to wind up being a late first round pick. So I don't think you'll see him. But Josh Jones out of Houston, I think, will make it to the second round. Shane Lemieux is a guy that I have pegged as a third round pick. He could be someone that gets pushed up. You know, like I just mentioned, these tackles get pushed up. You could easily see him in the second round. But there are going to be a ton of these guys that will be available. And so it's all about doing your homework and your due diligence and figure out who fits best in what you're trying to get done. A guy like Ezra Cleveland, not going to fit in a power run scheme. He's more of a guy that you want to get out into space and allow him to get to the second level, climb to that backer. You can pull him, you can move him around because he's so athletically gifted. Hell, at Boise, they even gave him the rock. They would use him in some jet sweeps and things of that nature. So it just speaks to how athletically gifted he is. And him running that sub 540 tells you all you need to know. So I think he would fit in a zone run blocking scheme in a place like Denver where they've struggled at left tackle after whiffing a few years ago on a first round pick. So a guy like Ezra Cleveland would fit great somewhere like there, or Houston. Again, one of these places where a zone run blocking scheme is prevalent. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, let's get to the next group and the final group of the day. The running back group number 6. For those of you scoring at home, it was the third group and the final group of day number 2. As I mentioned at the top of the show, a little underwhelmed by the speed of these guys. However, the overall talent that exists in this group was on full display. Not a lot of balls hit the ground today from a pass catching standpoint. Most of these guys looked fluid. They debuted the brand new Deuce Staley drill, and you could see guys that had tight hips and tight ankles and tight feet and weren't loose hipped. And then you could also see the guys who had just absolutely magic twinkle toe ballerina type feet. And there were some guys that were absolutely smoking in that drill. And so let's get to the guys that really impressed me on the day. And you start with one of the guys that I thought was one of the stars of the running back position in Cam Akers, the Florida State running back, 5'10", 217, ran a 4.47, caught everything that came his way, looked so fluid in every drill. The feet were fantastic. He showed why he once upon a time was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school. He really kind of got lost in the sauce at Florida State with their struggles once Jimbo Fisher left. And really, that last year that Jimbo was there, they weren't very good. If you remember, that was the year their quarterback got hurt the first game of the season against Alabama, and they really weren't the same. And Jimbo got the hell out of Dodge because he could see this wave of funk coming. And one of the guys that really got caught and swept up in that funk was Cam Akers. And he's a good football player. And when you watched Florida State, and I used to watch Florida State because they would be on all the time. The one guy that would stand out on that offense was Cam Akers week in and week out. And he showed why he's going to be one of the first backs taken off the board in this draft. I think if you're looking in the pecking order of running backs, I think he's going to be the third back taken in this draft behind Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. So I think Cam Akers made himself some money in day 2 of the combine. 3 stars once again for him on this day. Eno Benjamin is a guy that I've always liked at Arizona State. I remember last year watching the N'Keal Harry tape and running into Eno Benjamin and thinking to myself, man, this guy runs hard and this guy has a little juice to him as well. He ran at 5'9", 207, a 4.57 40, which I know some of you scoff at, but in this league, you don't have to be a burner to be effective. And so 2 stars for Eno Benjamin. I thought he did some really good things, showed some good agility on some of these drills, caught the football very effectively, which is something else he did exceptionally well at Arizona State. He really was Mr. Do-It-All for them out of the backfield, and I thought he showed well on this day. A.J. Dillon was a guy that I was dying to see because I knew he was going to weigh a ton. He came in at 247 pounds. My goodness, at 6 feet. Massively big back, okay? In an NFL day and age where lighter is better and everyone's looking for the scat back and the guy that can do everything but still weigh 215 pounds like an Alvin Kamara, or hell, even 210, 212 pounds like a Christian McCaffrey. This guy came in at damn near 250 and still ran a 4.53. To me, that was one of the more impressive 40 times that I saw out of the running back group because of his size. My goodness. 2.5 stars for A.J. Dillon. And yeah, he's stiff. Okay, coming out of the backfield, you saw some stiffness, but he actually still caught the football, which was I was pleasantly surprised at that. But nonetheless, I'm really looking forward to seeing where A.J. Dillon lands. I really like A.J. Dillon. I've been an A.J. Dillon fan for the last 3 years or so. I remember his freshman year at BC. He was just tearing it up. And I've liked him from afar, and I'm glad to see him perform the way that he did. 2.5 stars for A.J. Dillon at the combine for me in day number 2. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy that if you couldn't have it's impossible for you to have not seen him this year. Watching LSU, they're all over the television screen, had a perfect season, won the national championship. Joe Burrow is the talk of every mock draft, every draft analyst. You'd be hard pressed not to run into this guy, whether it's Joe Burrow you're watching, or Justin Jefferson, or Lloyd Cushenberry III. It doesn't really matter who you're looking at. You're gonna run into Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This guy is electric, and 5'7", 207. I knew he wasn't going to run a blazing fast time. I did, however, think he was going to run faster than 4.61. All right, I thought I had him pegged at 4.56. That's right around where I had him, 4.55, 4.56, somewhere in that neighborhood. He ran a 4.61. That's perfectly fine. The guys that they are comparing him to, one was on the set doing the running back commentary in the ex-Heisman Trophy winner, Mark Ingram. And Mark Ingram ran a 4.66 at the combine. So this guy, for me, it's his agility that wins. It's his ability to catch it out of the backfield as a pass catcher that wins. It's his ability to make guys miss out in space. I always think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and that 3rd and 9 catch versus Bama, where Joe Burrow is under immense pressure right away. He gets it out into the flat to Edwards-Helaire on a 1-yard completion. It looks like he's going to be stopped about 5 or 6 yards short of the first down, and they're going to have to punt. And at this point of the game, Alabama has scored 14 unanswered. They've cut it to a 4-point, I think it's a 6-point game at that time at like 39-33, whatever the score was at that time, 39-34. And he makes that defender miss and then drags another guy and stretches the football over the line to gain for the first down. And I was floored. I mean, that was to me the play of the game. And so when I think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think of plays like that. He just does everything. And so 2.5 stars for him. He caught the football exceptionally well. Here's a guy that is a sleeper for a lot of people. I've been hearing his name a ton. Frankly, I think it's just because a lot of the comments that I read are from Redskins fans. And most likely, if you're a Redskins fan and you live in the DMV area, you probably follow Maryland basketball, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is a guy that just is on everybody's radar in that area. But Anthony McFarland Jr. is a guy that can play. I remember watching last year Maryland versus Ohio State tape and running into Anthony McFarland Jr. Then he destroyed Ohio State last year. I remember watching that game and thinking to myself, who in the hell is this guy? 2 massive runs for touchdowns. Remember, Ohio State was on the ropes versus Maryland last year, and if not for a missed completion at the end on a 2-point conversion, Maryland beats them last year in a shootout, and McFarland was a huge part of the reason they were in that ball game. So I knew this guy could fly, and he pretty much checked off that box at 5'8", 208. He ran a 4.44, the Moses Malone 4.44. And for me on the day, he was a 2.5 star guy, caught everything. Did Anthony McFarland. Hands look A1 legit, and his feet are quick. And I think he's going to be one of these guys that you draft and you're going to be really happy that you did, because he's going to be able to do a lot of the little things for you out of the backfield. I like Anthony McFarland Jr. a lot, and I thought he did some really good things on the evening. Zach Moss was a little disappointing for me from this standpoint. I thought he would run faster than he did. And I knew he wasn't going to be a blazer. I wasn't looking for 4.47 from him. Hell, I wasn't even looking for 4.45 from him. I was looking for 4.59, 4.62, somewhere in that range. That's what I saw on tape from him at Utah, the 5'9", 223-pound product out of Utah. But what he blessed us with was a 4.70. So a little disappointed in the 40 speed there from Zach Moss, but he did everything else really well. I thought he caught it exceptionally well. His feet look good. And he's a guy that can make you miss, but he's more of a physical back anyway. So the time probably shouldn't surprise me. But you watch him on tape, he can make you miss out in space. He can be elusive. So thought he would be a little bit faster. He wasn't. but he's still a good football player. 2-star day for Zach Moss. La'Mical Perine is a guy that I really like out of Florida. 5'11", 216-pound back out of Florida. This is a guy that early on in his Florida career, I was really lukewarm on him. They had a bunch of backs in that backfield about 2-3 years ago. He was one of them, and I was like, I'll pass on him. But I felt like he got into great shape last year, and his ability to make people miss in a phone booth was dynamic. And I saw a little bit of burst and quickness that I thought he lacked. And maybe some of that came with the number change. He went from like number 32 to like number 7. And I said, man, this guy looks faster. And you'd be surprised at how big and wearing single digits makes you look a lot faster. But in any event, I was really pleased with what he did in the combine today. 4.6, 240. Not a surprise there. I was hoping for 4.55, somewhere in that neighborhood. Got a 4.62. That's totally fine. He's quicker than fast. So that didn't shock me. Caught the ball really well. I thought La'Mical Perine helped himself. I really did. He was a 2.5-star performer on the day. DeAndre Swift out of Georgia is my number 1 back in this draft. I liken him to Josh Jacobs last year, but he's a faster version, but he can lower the boom with his shoulder. He can make you miss out in space. I've been watching DeAndre Swift for the last 3 years at Georgia. Since his freshman year when he came in and helped Georgia put them on the map with Kirby Smart. This guy's been dynamic for that offense. And remember, he was a part of that 3-headed monster once upon a time with Cleveland Browns running back. I'm trying to think of his name. Chubb. With Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and himself. He was outstanding with those guys. He took a bigger role when those guys moved on to the NFL. And he did not disappoint. 5'8", 212-pound back out of Georgia, ran a 4.48. He was the most dynamic. He was the most fluid. He was the one that looked the most easy in the receiving drills. He didn't even look the ball in. His hands are so official. They're so A1 that he's one of these guys you could split out into the slot at receiver and you wouldn't lose a thing. And so if you ask me who's the closest to Christian McCaffrey in this draft, I'd tell you it's DeAndre Swift. And that's the kind of back I think he's going to be. Daniel Jeremiah compares him to D'Angelo Williams, and it's a great comparison. I look at him as a Christian McCaffrey type, and I think he's got a little bit more boom and a little bit more physicality than McCaffrey. McCaffrey's has a lot more top-end speed. But when you talk about agility and the ability to make guys miss and to get in and out of breaks and routes and be crisp and sharp and break guys off, you're talking about DeAndre Swift. He had a 3-star day, and to me, the best day of any back. But someone that was right on his heels, nipping at his heels on the day, was Jonathan Taylor, the back out of Wisconsin. You remember the 10 things that I wanted to see from the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. Number 2 or 3 on that list, 4 somewhere in there, was how fast was running back Jonathan Taylor going to run? Remember, everyone was saying, and Taylor himself said, I expect to have a Saquon Barkley type day. And people were saying he's going to run faster than Saquon. He's going to jump, not higher than Saquon, but on par with Saquon. He's going to blow you away. He's going to knock your socks off. And I said, I don't believe you. All right. I hit him with the Ron Burgundy meme. I don't believe you. All right. And so I needed to see it, which is why I put that on my list. And man, did he deliver or what? Jonathan Taylor, 5'10", 226 pounds. We knew this guy was well built from his time at Wisconsin, but for him to come out, and I don't necessarily believe this official time of 4.39. I think he was really a 4.41 because Saquon was officially a 4.4 flat last year, and they did the simulcast with him and Saquon beat him. So if I'm to believe the simulcast, which I believe the simulcast to be factual, 100% factual, then I think he was a 4.41, the unofficial time. But they're giving us 4.39. That's what everybody's going to run with. I think he was really a 4.41. What the hell are we really talking about? If we're talking about 200ths of a second, and we're talking about the difference between a 4.39 and a 4.41, this guy's flying at 2.26. All right? And then to put icing on the cake that was already scrumped, delicious, the man caught every damn thing except for when he ran himself out of his damn shoe on one of the routes out of the backfield. All right? On the swing route, he ran out of his damn shoe, and that was the only ball he dropped all day long. Looked really good catching the damn football. I thought Jonathan Taylor, along with DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers, made himself some money. I would not be shocked after seeing what Jonathan Taylor did today. I wouldn't be shocked if he moseyed his way into the first round. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I think he's going to be the second back taken in this draft behind DeAndre Swift. And then you're going to see Cam Akers. It wouldn't shock me, though, because of what Cam Akers is and what he provides. If he went ahead of a guy like Jonathan Taylor, to me, Taylor's your second back in this draft. He's the second back off the board, and then that will be followed up by Cam Akers. And I'm not going to forget J.K. Dobbins, although he did not perform here. He's another guy that you don't want to forget about. I question his top-end speed, though. And that's why I really was dying to see what J.K. Dobbins would run. He did not perform or participate at the combine. A little disappointing. Don't know if there's an injury there. They didn't talk about him. Kim Jones didn't say anything. No one really even mentioned J.K. Dobbins on the day. So I guess we'll have to wait till his pro day to kind of find out. And you know, those pro day times are really skewed. You're going off a bunch of hand times and people giving you random times. So I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to run a sub 4.5. I don't. So we'll see what happens. He's a hell of a back as well. Anyway, Keyshawn Vaughn was the final back that I noted out of Vandy, 5'10", 214, ran a 4.5, 140. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor was a 3-star back for me, if I did not mention that. Keyshawn Taylor was a 2-star back out of the backfield. He looked a little stiff in the pass-catching drills, but he caught the football, and that's the most important thing. He had one drop. I do remember one drop on the option route where he broke to the outside and did not catch the football, but for the most part, I thought Keyshawn Vaughn had a solid day. So there you have it. That is day number 2 of the Combine. We're going to get to some Super Chats. I think I saw some pop up, so we're going to get to those. So we start with Brandon McCloskey. Appreciate the Super Chat, Brandon McCloskey. Good looking out. Looks like you're back for day 2 of the Combine after you had a strong showing on day number 1. Thank you once again for the Super Chat. Brandon McCloskey says, "Hey, Louie, guess who's back?" LOL. And I just made mention of that. Guess who's back? My man, Brandon McCloskey, is back. Thank you for the Super Chat. Says, Wuzzy, thank you for the Super Chat. Greatly appreciated. Wuzzy, thank you so much. Wuzzy says, analysts dragged Haskins today when talking to it at 2. Look, these things are going to happen. I don't get wrapped up in a lot of these things that are being said. You're going to hear a lot of things flying around. And you got to also remember that these players have agents and handlers that are getting in the ears of these analysts and these people that are TV personalities. And so they're pushing an agenda. They're pushing narratives because they're talking to these people and they want to establish relationships with them so that when they get future clients down the road, they will funnel information to them. So there's a lot of politicking that goes on, which is why you got to take everything with a grain of salt, okay? A lot of this is hand-wringing, and a lot of this is people making sure that they grease palms, not necessarily with money, but with future favors down the road. Hey, don't forget me when I need that interview or I need some information. Don't forget that I did you this favor back in 2020 for your guy that was trying to get drafted in the top 5. So there's some of that that's going to take place. You can't allow yourself to be immersed in a lot of this stuff. Again, take it with a grain of salt. All right, take it with a grain of salt. Kid Blue running back 27. Thank you for the super chat. Kid Blue running back 27. Kid Blue RB 27 writes, have to show some support for an OG YouTuber and analyst. Keep up the great work, buddy. I greatly appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for the super chat and the support and your contribution. Greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Brandon McCloskey, double up, for Brandon McCloskey coming back. It was so nice. He decided to bless me twice. Thank you so much for the super chat. Once again, Brandon McCloskey, he writes, doubling up just to see you do the dance. Keep up the great work, Louis. Hey, I appreciate that, Brandon McCloskey. Thank you for your support. Let's see. John Saluter, thank you for the super chat. John Saluter, really appreciate you blessing me with the super chat. John writes, sorry, I've been absent lately, Louis. It's all good. No need to apologize. Life happens, okay? Life happens, but as long as you are able to check it, whether it's down the road or you're able to catch me live, obviously I would prefer you to be here live, but again, life happens. You know what I mean? Not everyone has an opportunity to be in front of their, cellular or mobile device. Not everyone has an opportunity to be in front of their computer or desktop or television, whatever the case may be. You got things to do. That's why you can always catch it on playback, but I'm glad you were able to catch it tonight live, and I appreciate the super chat, John. Thank you so much for the support. Next super chat is from Kevin Thurston. Kevin Thurston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. Thank you for looking out, Kevin Thurston. Kevin writes, what are your thoughts on Tua rumors? Just join the chat. Well, we talked about it earlier. Had someone super chat about that. Matter of fact, it was my man Power Nickel 29 that super chatted about the Tua rumors to the Redskins at number 2. And as I told him, and I'll quickly gloss over this again because I don't really want to get into that whole conversation once again. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louis T. It's lion season, man. You know what time it is. You're going to hear a lot more of this. This is not the last time you're going to hear this kind of rumor regarding the number 1 or number 2 overall pick in this draft. You're going to hear that the Redskins are really considering trading out of the number 2 pick before it's all said and done. You're going to hear that the Redskins are really interested in Joe Burrow if he is not selected by Cincinnati. You're going to hear that the Redskins really, really have been impressed with Tua Tagovailoa, and if the medical checks out, which is what the report was today, that they're really seriously thinking about taking him. At the end of the day, all of this is what you're going to hear because there's a lot of time between now and the April 23rd, 24th draft day. It's a lot of time that they got to fill. They need stories. They need to have things to talk about. You know what's not cute, what's not sexy, what's not fun to talk about? Joe Burrow 1 to Cincinnati, Chase Young 2 to the Washington Redskins. Let's start the draft at number 3. That's not fun. You know what is fun? Man, the Redskins are really considering taking Tua at 2. That's fun. That's sexy. That moves the needle. That gets clicks. All right, it has you talking right now. All right, so you're gonna hear more of this. They're gonna be much more. Oh man, Cincinnati really loves Chase Young at 1. You're gonna hear this. This is what happens. There's a lot of time to fill. So don't allow yourself to be coerced into thinking more about this than that's really there. Okay? I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. And I don't think you should either. Okay? Anyhow, got another super chat from this time from my man John Saluter. Thank you for the super chat, John. And once again, you're here blessing me with another super chat, doubling up, for John Saluter as he comes through with yet another super chat for the kid. Thank you so much, John. John writes, I know this is about the combine. Just curious where you could see Kyle Duggar going in the draft. Lenore Ryan is just right down the road for me, so I'd like to see him go big. Remember, if you watched my 10 things I want to see in the 2020 Scouting Combine video, then you know that Kyle Duggar was on my list as a guy that I want to see blow up and I think he has a chance to do it. I talked about some guys that tested really well and saw their draft stock go through the roof, and Melinfanwu about 4 or 5 years ago out of UConn, which is not a football factory. As a matter of fact, it's not even a D1 school. So to see Obi Melinfanwu jump up the board, I think he ended up going in the second or third round to the Raiders, and it did not work for him. But because of the way he tested, shot up to like the second round. We saw the Lions draft a small school second round. I want to say he ended up going in the third round to the Detroit Lions. I think that you could see something similar here with Duggar. Kyle Duggar, I think, could easily end up in the first round, just depending on what teams need a safety. I know the Cowboys are probably going to take a safety in the first round. I think Xavier McKinney out of Alabama going to be the first safety off the board. I think that's who the Cowboys are going to take. I think after that, if you see a safety-starving team, Grant Delpit is going to be the second safety, I think, off the board. Then after Grant Delpit, that's when I think you start getting into the Kyle Duggar territory. And I'm thinking you're going to see Kyle Duggar come off the board in the second round. Early to mid-second round is where I see him landing as of now. That could all change with a strong combine performance. He could weasel his way into the first round, but I think he's going to end up being a second-round safety when it's all said and done. And remember, some people have Isaiah Simmons as a safety. I've got him as a backer. It really doesn't matter. He's a safety. He's a backer. It doesn't matter. I don't have him as a safety, which is why Xavier McKinney for me is the first safety off the board. But if you want to throw him in at the safety position, go ahead. Whatever makes your heart content. I've got him listed as a backer, and I think teams that draft him are going to use him more as a backer than a safety. So whatever the case may be, I think Kyle Duggar, to answer your question, is going to end up being a second rounder. We'll see what happens. Anyhow, Barrett Downing with a super chat. And yes, Barrett Downing, you came at one yesterday? You were the first person. I remember that. Let me make sure you haven't doubled up. I don't think you have today, but let me just be sure. I don't want to shortchange anybody. No, but hey, appreciate the super chat, Barrett Downing. Greatly appreciate it. As always, you always bless the kids. So thank you so much for continuing to support the movement. Barrett writes, what compensatory picks will the Skins be getting? The equation for the compensatory picks is so convoluted that it's hard to really say right now. I'm trying to think. I don't recall the Redskins losing that many high-profile free agents last year. They signed one that took up a bunch of cap. So I don't know if the Redskins will be getting any compensatory picks this year. I'm trying to think. We lost Jamison Crowder. We lost Preston Smith. Those were the two high-profile guys that moved on to different situations. And we got Landon Collins in return. And Landon's deal was so massive that his deal might be Jamison's and Preston's combined. So I don't really know I don't think the Redskins are getting a third rounder, if that's what you're after. I think if the Redskins get a compensatory pick, it'll be somewhere in like the 5th, 6th round, something like that. So I don't anticipate the Redskins coming away with that third round, that elusive third round compensatory pick like they had the year they lost Kirk Cousins in free agency. If that's what you're looking for, I don't think we're going to get one of those this year. Got another super chat from Kevin Thurston, who is doubling up. For Kevin Thurston. Thank you so much, Kevin Thurston, for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Kevin writes, you're a pro. Keep up the good work, HTTR. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for your support and viewership. You keep it up by continuing to tune in here on the Louis T Network. Got another super chat. This one from my man Nick at Night. Nick Riley. Haven't heard from my man Nick in quite some time, man. Really appreciate Nick. You're one of the OGs around here, man. So I really appreciate you stopping in and dropping a little something on the kid, man. I really appreciate you blessing me with the super chat, man. Thank you so much, Nick, for the super chat. My man Nick at Night writes, 24 for the GOAT. Nothing but the utmost respect for my man Lou, love you, Lou, and people sleeping on cornerback Cameron Dantzler out of Mississippi State. I'm not sleeping on Cameron Dantzler, and people will know his name. I think he is going to blow up in day number 4. I expect him to run fast, time well, and move well. Cameron Dantzler is a guy that I think we'll hear his name pretty early in this draft. I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick, but I do expect him to hear his name called sometime early in the second round of this draft. Thank you so much for the super chat, Nick. Greatly appreciate it, man. Salute. Appreciate you. Barrett Downing, doubling up. I talked about you earlier, and I said I wasn't sure if you doubled up. Well, now I'm officially sure you doubled up. Double up. For Barrett Downing. Thank you, BD, for the super chat once again. Barrett writes, glad you can sit through the combine and get me that info. Thanks. Look, I've always said this going back about 5 or 6 years ago when I first started breaking down the combine like this. I said, look, I'm sitting through 7 hours of combine coverage, so you don't have to. All right. Don't waste your time watching this. I wouldn't waste my time watching this if I didn't have to. But I have to. I feel like it's my duty. It's my obligation to bless you, the people, with what has happened, what has went down. So let me waste away 7 hours of my life I can't get back so that you can go out, enjoy a night out in town. Okay, go bowling. Go hit the club. Go get a couple drinks. Come back and then kick it with me, and I'll break it down and tell you what I saw. So I'm always here for you, man. Always. So I appreciate you, Barrett. And I always got y'all. I always hold y'all down. You know that. Another super chat from John Saluter. I can't even keep track at this point. I think this is your third one. John, you always bless me, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, John. John Saluter writes, did anyone blow your socks off today? Yeah, there were quite a few guys that I thought were exceptional. Nick Harris, center from Washington, was absolutely fantastic today. He was a standout performer. I thought Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama, Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa were also big-time performers along the offensive line. But at the running back position in particular, Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift were my 3-star performers at the running back position. To me, Jonathan Taylor running as fast as he did, some people made me feel bad about that. Like, dude, he was a track star. You should have known he was going to run fast. Look, I always tell you, in the Big Ten, I'm always a little skeptical of just how fast guys are because, you know, when you're at Wisconsin and you're running past Minnesota defenders and you're running past guys that I'm not quite sure of. Look, Michigan State usually not pumping out the best athletes in the world. I'm always a little skeptical, man. So I usually need to see it because you running for a 65-yard touchdown past Illinois defenders isn't moving the needle for me a lot of times. But to see him come out and blaze it the way that he did, catch it the way that he did, I was thoroughly impressed with Jonathan Taylor. DeAndre Swift just checked all the boxes. I knew what this guy was about. He came in as my number 1 back. He left as my number 1 back. Also quite surprised at how fast A.J. Dillon ran at 200 and damn near 50 pounds, at 247 to be exact. That was eye-popping as well. But this was a day that some guys, you know, did what I expected them to do, and then there were some guys that came out and kind of shocked me a bit. But for the most part, the running backs, they took care of business. Cam Akers took care of business. Jonathan Taylor took care of business. DeAndre Swift took care of business. And I thought a guy like LaMichael Pirine showed some really good movement skills throughout the day as well. So with that being said, another super chat from John Saluter. Thank you once again, John. That's 4 for you right there, if I'm not mistaken. For those of you keeping score at home, I think that's 4 for my man, John. Thank you so much for the super chat. John says, love seeing you get all the super chats, brother. I greatly appreciate all the super chats. I love seeing all the super chats, man. I love the engagement. I love the fact that you guys think highly enough of me to donate to the channel in that manner, in that regard. So I thank you guys. Can't thank you enough for you guys, blessing the brand and the movement and continuing to help power what it is I do here on the Louis T Network. So that seems like it is it there. Really appreciate you guys coming through and blessing the program with me. Like I said, it's late, and I know for a lot of you, you might have to work tomorrow in the morning, and still, who can stand out as an athletically gifted guy as an edge rusher? Chase Young not going to perform, so now I feel like guys have an opportunity to let their name ring out as an edge rusher. Show your ability to drop into coverage and do all of the things that the scouts want to see. It'll be interesting to see how the linebackers perform. They're going to be a couple of guys that run really, really well. Murray out of Oklahoma is going to run well. Queen out of LSU is going to run really, really well. We know Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson is going to run really well. But who else is going to run really well at the linebacker position? It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think there are a couple of Wisconsin. It seems like there are always some Wisconsin backers. There's another one this year that I think actually might time and test pretty well. So we'll see what happens. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow after day 3 of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louis T. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louis T Network. Got another super chat, so I'll get to that before we get out of here. But make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louis T Network for more great content. Remember, Draft Prospects 101 series starts on Monday. Thursday is the first installment of what will be a weekly show that we will do every single week leading up to the draft. Thursdays, every week heading into the draft. We'll have our final one the Wednesday right before the draft. Draft 101 live every week. This week we'll be talking quarterbacks. So get your books, your pencils, and all of your notes out. Quarterback heavy. We're going to talk quarterbacks. No other position, just quarterbacks. And then the following week, we'll start talking running backs. And then the week after that, receivers, tight ends, and so forth, as we head towards the draft. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. Miguel Reyes 17, thank you for the super chat. Miguel Reyes 17, thank you so much for your contribution. Miguel writes, what wide receiver and tight end prospects do you see for the Skins in the later rounds? It'll be interesting to see how the tight end position goes, because to me that's still an enigma, because I wasn't overly blown away by the tight end position, although there were some guys that did stand out yesterday, and I'll refer back to my notes from yesterday's combine. But looking at the tight end position, remember I talked about Josiah DeGuara and how he blew me away. To me, he was the best tight end at the combine in terms of his performance, not necessarily the talent, but his performance was the best. To me, I think he's a guy that could be around for you in the 4th, 5th round. And I think a lot of these guys, when we look at the tight ends, are going to be around 4th, 5th, 6th round, okay? Most of these guys aren't. I told you, there isn't a first-round tight end in this draft. You're not going to see a first-round tight end. And so I think you don't see, tight ends start to come off the board until the mid portion of the 2nd round. Then you're going to probably see a small run on them. 3 or 4 guys will go in the 2nd. And then you'll start to really see it rev up in the 3rd and then the 4th. And you'll start to see some of these guys get backloaded a bit. So there'll be some options available for the Redskins. I think a Colby Parkinson out of Stanford will be available. I think you'll see a guy like Devin Asiasi probably available. You'll see a guy like Dalton Keene out of Virginia Tech probably be available. These are the kinds of guys that'll be available as you get into the mid to later rounds. So I look forward to seeing some of those guys. And you asked about the wide receiver position. That's hard to really identify because there's so many receivers in this draft. And I don't know how it's going to go. Because you got people all over the place right now as to how many first-round wide receivers we're going to see. I think the number you start at is 4. I think we could see anywhere from 7 go in the first round. I think you start at 4 because CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, all going in the first round. All of those guys are locks to go in the first round, and that's 3 right there. You could easily see, 2 or 3 more guys weasel their way into the first round, and this thing could really be crazy. Justin Jefferson, I think, is a lock for the first round after what he did at the Combine. The tape is ridiculous, and him to go out and run the way that he did, catch it the way that he did, move the way that he did. I think that's your 4th first round wide receiver, and you could easily see another 1 or 2 guys go in that mix. So T. Higgins is a guy that could go in the first round. Obviously, he didn't perform at the Combine, but it's going to be really interesting. So it's hard to really say with the receiver position who's going to be around. And then at what point of the draft are you talking? Are you talking 3rd round? Are you talking 4th round? Are you talking 5th round? It'll be interesting to see how these receivers shake out because I feel like this. And I thought a Redskins fan said it very eloquently about a week ago. If you're at the top of the 3rd round, there's going to be some tremendous value at the receiver position because some guys that are probably better suited to be selected in the 2nd round are going to fall to you in the 3rd round. And you got to just be willing to allow that kind of value to fall into your lap. And so I think there are going to be some options available. So got another super chat. And thanks again, Miguel Reyes, 17. Got another super chat, this time from CGM87. CGM87, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. CGM87 writes, heard Charlie Casserly say Skins should take Chase and not overthink it. I think the new regime is already ready to punt on Haskins, though. I don't think they're ready to punt on Haskins. I just don't know if they're 100% sold, and they're entitled to that opinion. If you're not 100% sold on Dwayne Haskins, join the club. I think there aren't many people out there that are 100% sold on Dwayne Haskins. Although I am ready to give him an opportunity. This is the thing you have to take into consideration. If you're the Redskins organization, you got to be thinking to yourself, we're not going to be in this position again. All right. Ron Rivera doesn't plan on the Redskins being 3-13, 4-12 again. All right. He's not planning on that. And so the Redskins aren't going to be in this type of position where they can pretty much dictate what guy they're going to take. And so if you're not sold on Dwayne Haskins, if you don't think he's the guy and you have a chance to get the guy that you believe is a true difference maker at the quarterback position, then you really need to take that into consideration and potentially make that pick because the quarterback position is the most important position. While I love Chase Young and I want him bad, if we didn't have a quarterback, I wouldn't be talking Chase Young to you. I'd be talking Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, or one of these guys out here that I think should be the Redskins' next quarterback. I wouldn't be talking about Chase Young. Although I want him badly, I wouldn't be looking at Chase Young because the quarterback position trumps all. And so if you're the Redskins and you feel like Dwayne Haskins has a chance to be a franchise QB in this league, which I do, then you bypass quarterback and you take the can't miss prospect at the second most important position in all of football, which is pass rusher. And so because you have a quarterback, if you were the Bengals and you didn't have a quarterback, then Chase Young isn't even in the consideration. He's not even in the conversation because you got to have the most important position taken care of. For the Redskins, they're not 100% sure about Dwayne Haskins, but they have a guy that they feel like at least gives them an opportunity at the quarterback position. And I think he still has a chance to be elite. You know, a lot of people are saying this, saying that about Dwayne Haskins. Time will tell on Haskins. One thing's for sure, we got a young quarterback. And so I'm not looking for a quarterback. I want the can't miss generational pass rusher. That's what I'm looking to snag. And I think that's what the Redskins ultimately will do at number 2. I'm with Charlie Casserly. Not really much to think about here. Although you're going to hear everybody have their opinions leading up to the draft. At the end of the day, I think the move to make is draft Chase Young and keep it moving. And that's what I think the Redskins ultimately are going to do. So with that being said, I'm going to glide to the side. I thank you guys for your participation again tonight. Can't thank you guys enough once again for joining me and for having all of this dialogue and being so engaging, okay? Whether you're in the chat talking with other people in the chat or you're super chatting me and chopping it up, I love that participation, and I ask that you continue to do so in the future. That being said, I'm your man, Louis T. I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll come back, do this again tomorrow. Day number 3, we'll get the defense kicked off. Defensive line, edge rushers, and LBs. Should be a ton of fun. I'll see you then. You guys have a good one.